All right, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to our SIG release meeting at KubeCon at the conference. We also have our Zoom set up and also record this session, so no information will get lost. Looks like we have a pretty agenda for today. If you have a chance to add yourself the list of attendees, and we would also require a note taker for today. Do we have any volunteer for that? Thanks. Okay, thanks, John. All right, I think the first topic we can just announce is that we have a big release introduction meet talk tomorrow at in the afternoon, right?
Yeah, 2:30.
2:30, yes, exactly. So Marco and Veronica will present the latest and greatest of our SIG release and what we achieved in the past and what we are working on in the future. And I think we can also speak a little bit about. Yeah, thanks. I think we can also speak about the things we plan in the next upcoming release cycle. So Marco, do you want to provide us a short update about the OBS proof of concept implementation for the release packages?
Yeah, so the way where we are standing with OBS for now is that we did generate the specs and archive files like 95% done. There are some improvements that are needed to be done. The way that next step we need to do is like to integrate OBS in the release pipeline, so that we, for example, when we run CREL release, that it eventually calls the OBS APIs, that it triggers builds, waits for that builds, ensure that packages are published, and then report back. And that's basically the overall very high level idea about what are we trying to do. Ideally, it is going to happen for 128. We are still trying to figure out some stuff logistically about if we can get some help with vertical packages. This is something that is ongoing between SIGCAS, Infra, and CNCF. So maybe we get some additional help for that. But this is something that we should try to plan forward for 128. Sadly, it didn't work out for 127. But in general, there are no blockers other than that we need time for that to work on.
So can you keep like a overview of the kind of help that you need?
So yeah, we would probably need to figure out from where to start, like to create some issues and stuff like that. And maybe we have some GitHub project or stuff like that that's tracking this progress. Like there's definitely going to be some effort that are going to take time, like implementing the way to call APIs, implementing a way to wait for builds to be done, handling permissions, handling testing. Like there are going to be a lot of smaller tasks, but we should do some planning and prioritization, create issues based on that, and then we can eventually see what exactly we need, can be helped with, and try to figure out the way that we even want to do that. So that's also important.
Do we have an up-to-date enhancement about this?
Yeah,
we did this in the beginning of 127, right?
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. All right. Thank you for this introduction.
Yeah. I can put it in the document. And this is a run one. I barely see it from here. Just as a moment. It is. Where is the code now? Okay. They changed the UI. And the SIG release.
I lost my Zoom connection.
This is the cap. So I can put it here.
So I have to reconnect to Zoom. Cool. Thank you for this update. And so before we speak about the LTS working group, I was just, because you had the enhancement open about the Salsa level 3 stuff. Do we want to, or do we plan to work on this as part of the next release cycle as well?
Yeah, I have something to say about that. So the Salsa work is we did some updates to the Salsa tester, and we are going to need help because we're trying to figure out how to make that work benefit all of the other projects. And so that involves two things. One, ensuring that the tester fulfills our needs. So right now, I'm trying to get a PR open before Thursday to get people to look at the way we are going to be extracting information from browser jobs to attest them. So what you want to get is when you build an image or any browser job that outputs artifacts, we want to be able to query Prow to get information about how those artifacts were built and put that information into a signed attestation. So I already have a PR almost ready to do that. And that's half of the work. And the other half is how do we ensure that all projects can benefit from this? One way is, of course, taking that attester that we wrote and implementing it themselves. But what I would like to see is what I would like us to try to find a way to do it for them, like the way we did it with the signatures. So when we promote the images for any project, they get their signature, and so this work benefited all projects. So they basically got signatures with images, signed images for free. And with the regards of the attestations, we need to, I would like to try to do the same thing if we can, but we need to do some research on how we can plug to get information about those jobs. And because there's no, currently, if I'm not mistaken, that there's no, we can get a list of all the Proud jobs that happen, but there's no easy way to connect those jobs with the artifacts that they outputted, right? So that's one challenge. And the other thing that we want is to help people who are creating attestations as part of the release process, that we can carry those attestations to the production registries. And that involves doing some work on the image promoter. And so that when we promote images, if they have any any attestations created before in the staging repositories, we carry those to the production registries. I'm gonna do a talk with Carlos on Thursday, and we'll expand a little bit more on these ideas and where the projects are right now.
I have a couple questions. The first one is
yeah.
I have, the first question is that I have read somewhere that there is a new version of Salsa framework 1.0. Is that going to affect that task in any way? Is that going to, let's say, invalidate any of the works that we did, or are we good from that side?
Yeah, the short answer is we need to take a couple of tools. So right now we have our own attester, and it produces Salsa attestations with version 0.2. And we need to update the tools. So that's one. And the other one is BOM, our bill of materials tool, also has a capability of taking a bill of materials and distilling part of the Salsa attestation from the artifacts contained in an SBOM. so we need to update that as well. And so it's Salsa 1. This is because Salsa 1 is coming out shortly. Right now, they have opened the RC2, and it's open for comments. It doesn't concern me. It's not like because we're not there, like we are not producing the attestations. We are producing attestations right now, but they're not signed, and we don't not validate them in any way. So it's not a big rush. I'm more concerned about enabling the creation of those attestations in a secure and proper point in the build lifecycle. But yeah, we need to update them.
Changes of the image promoter. I mean, we kind of started this discussion somehow that we probably want to have something as a replacement for the image promoter. Would they go into it, or would that somehow incorporate?
Yeah, the changes of the image promoter. I mean, so this is in the context for this one is like 1 year ago we were promoting to 3 mirrors, and now we're promoting to 20 something mirrors. And I actually asked Marco about our tests and things like that. And we currently the image promoter is running under the rate limits that we have, both from Kubernetes Infra and from SIG Story. It's running reasonably well. We managed to slice the promotion time from over an hour to around 40 minutes now. So that's a good one. So my suggestion would be we leave the promoter right now running as is, and we favor rethinking the way we do the promotion. Like one of the ideas that has been floating around is essentially replicating into one mirror and then like letting it async copy to others. That's one of the ideas. But I feel that any major changes to the current promoter should be postponed in favor of a potential new promotion mechanism. And some of the work that we would need to carry the attestations would involve changes of the promoter, but it's kind of the same thing that we're doing with the signatures right now. So if you have a project under the Kubernetes umbrella and you're signing images, we are already taking those signatures and carrying them to the production registries. So we would only need to do the same thing for attestations and potentially any SMOs which are attached to the images earlier in the process.
Have you talked to the input about the work that they need to do, or that we need them to do before or after? The discussion we started last week with well, last week we talked about this because every time that we run a release and people are working on the promoter, it's usually on our side and on the infra side. Arno and Mohammed usually have things to do that don't necessarily overlap with his work, with they touch the promoter, and like whoever is touching the release ends up having a harder time because pieces are moving at different times and people don't know. So last week we started a conversation about if you need that nobody touches the promoter for a bit, so in order to bring these changes, will that work for SIG?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this would have to go on their head because it involves basically redesigning the way we're promoting images, so it needs input not just from us but from the other six. And I mean, both Arno and Mohammed and others from SIG Infra are like regular attendees, and we also, some of us also show up on their meetings, so we have pretty good communication. Okay. So and some of these ideas have also originated from their side. So we're kind of on the same page.
All right, thank you. Any other input regarding Salsa? I would assume that we want to update the cap in the near future and then start working on it as part of 128. So, right?
Yeah, I would love to land some of these changes for 128.
Yeah, at least some.
Yeah, and because we don't really need to make changes to Grail or some of the other release tooling. This is another process that runs in parallel, so
yeah,
should be clean enough.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. So that I would like to go back to the LTS working group, which would be probably get a restart. So there's a link to an unconference. Do we want to provide an update?
Yeah. Can you give a quick update?
Cool.
So folks may or may not have been around when there was a LTS or long-term support working group. That wrapped up in 2020, I think. Part of that came, one of the things that came out of that was change to how long things are supported. That has been re-kicked off or will be re-kicked off. There's a link here in the docs if you want to take a look to see kind of the discussion that happened. And if you're interested, you can add your name into the list of folks that are interested in signing up for the working group to make sure that you're involved in any distro list that's created by default, or if you want to participate in the meeting so we can kind of figure out what the time frame, what meeting schedules kind of look like. It's hard to cover a lot of time zones, but essentially, I think what the takeaway was, you scroll to the very bottom of the document. I think there's a pretty decent summary right there. So the LTS working group will kind of come up with what a North Star looks like. And maybe, I think right now that looks something like maybe a 2-year extra support, and identifying what skip level upgrades look like. So you can go from say 124 to 128 through that sort of cycle. And this will be like a community driven thing. Individual vendors can then have their own forks of that to do things they want to do downstream. But this is kind of focused on enabling the common set of things and identifying all the pieces that are going to get touched. Obviously, this will need to be a working group because it's going to be cross SIGs and a lot of folks will have to be involved in this. It has implications for SIG release. It has implications for Kate's infra. It has implications for testing, for API machinery, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's pretty, this will be a long process, I think, to kind of nail down what things are going to look like. But if you're interested, you can kind of scroll through all of the discussion. It wasn't recorded because it was an unconference, but there's a lot of context, I think, inside of here. There's some good links to previous information if you want to kind of catch up and see what was discussed before. But definitely add your name if you're interested and stay tuned for updates on that. I think we had a question over here.
Yeah, sorry, I just joined in middle. So where I can find our documents link and you see in this.
Yes, this is the SIG release. I dropped it in the SIG release channel as well.
Oh, nice.
This is the document that we have on the screen right now is the SIG release normal meeting minutes, and we're just keeping track of things here. The LTS document that we just had up was from, it's in kates.dev/summit/notes. You can find a link to it in there.
Oh. And what's the TLS represent?
What does LTS represent?
Yeah.
That's partly for the working group to decide. I think LTS has different meanings to different people. Is it just security fixes? Is it other things that kind of come into that? So I think the LTS working group is going to need to decide and define what that looks like. At a high level, I think you can think of longer support. You can think of versions being in support for longer periods of time.
Gotcha.
Things that go along with that.
Gotcha. Yeah, thanks for answering my stupid questions.
Oh, that's not a stupid question. That's a great question. Okay, CC has her hand up and then we'll come back.
So that's like potential extension of the current supported period of Kubernetes?
Yeah, I think that the answer to the question of what LTS is will have implications for that. It was interesting. We did a super formal poll of keeping your hands up until you didn't agree with something. And the common thoughts there, like 2 years seemed like a good answer. Maybe that's not. Maybe like I think end users are going to have a lot of impact, a lot of input on that. Another question was, is it just security fixes, or is it security fixes and catastrophic bugs that need to be fixed, or is it performance-related bugs that need to be fixed? So I think there's a lot of answers that people will have to agree on as a community to figure out what that looks like. Also, does it mean we just extend the support for everything? And at one point we're doing 9 patch releases, or does it mean that like 128 is LTS and it will get patches for longer and we cut 128 releases longer? Or does it mean that we're going to do 128, 129, 130, 131, 132, 133, 134 all at the same time? So I think none of that is decided because nothing is decided. It's just discussion to kick off the working group, to try to identify what a common vision looks like, what we want to have as a North Star. Definitely, there are people that are interested. I think in the room, there was no opposition in theory to the concept. Definitions obviously varied between people, but there was definitely interest in restarting the working group at least. There was a consensus that we should restart the working group to move forward.
Cool, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, Sasha has a question.
What was the initiator?
The initiator of that was that my employer decided to announce that they were going to provide long-term support for AKS.
Okay.
Okay. On the plane.
So it already felt like something political.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
not that a few people now just think, hey, let's just revive this topic. But
Yeah.
okay,
There was mutual interest.
Hmm.
When that was announced, there seemed to be mutual interest from several providers, downstream maintainers of distributions.
All right. Cool. Looking forward to the outcomes of those working group. Anything else regarding LTS?
I think it's important to note that there are several efforts of people duplicating efforts of maintaining all Kubernetes releases. So it makes sense that at least we centralize that in the community, but we, at least from my point of view, we should be like smart in the way we allow some of the changes. That's it's going to involve a lot of work. But we'll see.
Yeah, it's definitely not an easy answer to come to because it means different things to different people, but it is super important to think about all of the actual problems that need to be solved along with this. I think if you went to Jordan's presentation earlier, he talked about a number of things that have changed in the project, like disabling beta features by default, or the ability to bump go versions. A lot of those things were identified as problems that couldn't be overcome in the previous LTS working group. And maybe those are not problems now. Maybe they still are. Maybe there are other blockers to uncover and highlight.
Yeah, I know, for example, that I don't know if anyone from VMware is here, but I know that they are maintaining their own fork of the release today, and to ensure that it works, coding all the releases. So I mean, it makes sense that we support each other.
We maintain a fork of Kubernetes for the same reason, right? AKS needs to provide. So putting my Microsoft hat on, we have to provide support for things that are out of support upstream because AKS versions are, they don't align perfectly with the upstream releases. So we have a fork today. I'm sure that Amazon has a fork. I'm sure that Google probably has an internal fork. VMware has a fork. Pretty much anybody that is downstream consuming probably has a fork because they may want to cherry pick things that are going to get merged.
Yeah, but I was actually talking about our
The tool,
engineering
yeah.
tool,
Yeah. So we do too. We have it's a fork of most of the tooling as well.
Cool. Thank you. All right, so the next topic from Marco would be, should we consider planning sessions?
Yeah, let's scroll down. Don't hate me for this topic. I know that we all hate meetings, but back in the days, we had those sessions with Lori that were quite useful in some way. And we had quite well maintained project board. Our project board right now is a bit disaster. So I'm wondering if we should try to come up with those planning sessions again, because, for example, right now we discussed, at the beginning we discussed OBS, which is pretty much in my head and not documented everywhere. We also discussed the salsa stuff that is also probably not the best way documented in terms of issues and categories in project board. So I'm wondering, should we have maybe, let's say, every month, or for in the beginning, let's say, schedule 2 or 3 sessions, try to, like, earlier we had that that we on the meeting look through the board. I was not the biggest fan of it. Maybe once a month we do it, and like try to keep our stuff tidy and like have sessions per feature. For example, 1 session for salsa, 1 session for OBS stuff, like schedule it when it works for stakeholders, and try to like create issues together, make sure that those issues make sense and put them on board, and try to structure it that way.
If there is interest in that, it's something I can help with. Microsoft pays me to be a PM for open source projects, and particularly within the Kubernetes ecosystem. So I've been running similar sessions for Opa Gatekeeper and such. Like, if I know this community, so if there is desire for some help kind of orchestrating and doing the process side of that, I'm happy to contribute there if it would be wanted.
Veronica.
Okay, so I have thoughts. I agree. I agree with what Marco says. I have thoughts on a proposal. I feel like when we had those sessions, it was very useful, very productive, and things have changed a bit, or a lot. I remember that when we were having those sessions, it was like the things that we discussed were improvements towards, I don't know, the release process specifically. And then we would have, this is how my recollection, I'm not saying this is reality, but, and then we had another major topic, let's say salsa or whatever. But now our tooling has evolved a lot, and now we have like, what I will use the word pillars of, like, we have salsa and we have the registry and we have like several efforts going on that require a lot of technical ability and context that we just don't have enough hands to do it, and not all of us can be experts at it and at all times, right? So my proposal is, like, if we're going to have sessions like that, which I support, I think that it's not only about the session, but it's about ownership. Because I remember also that probably the last session that we had of that type, we had a lot of people who were interested for different reasons in different parts of this pillars, and then they didn't come back. And that is normal. That is even expected because it's open source. But then what happened was, like, since no one had formal ownership of these topics, people who volunteered to lead them were gone or didn't have the time or whatever. I'm not, this doesn't come from a place of judgment, but like it was hard to keep up with that. So my proposal is, like, we're going to have either a working session or document or whatever sort of organization with Sandra's help or anyone's help, like, for someone, I'll put you on the spot. Let's say Adolfo owning salsa efforts, even if he's not part of every working session or meeting or whatever, but that someone from the core team or like a permanent team owns an effort, and like if someone else wants to volunteer either within our team or an external contributor or whoever, knows that there is someone who, regardless of the cadence of external contributors, who will keep up with a little bit more of organization and like ownership, regardless of the framework that we decide to use to keep things up to date.
Yeah. Do you want to go first? Sir?
Yeah, I just have a question. Would it work? So we have the roadmap on top, and then we could say, okay, we link project boards technically to those items because the packaging effort as well as the salsa effort are the topmost priority items right now. And then we put their ownership of the project boards to those people, and they can then decide how to distribute the work and stuff like that.
Yeah, I would also like I like a lot the proposal from Veronica. Just I would like to add something that, in my opinion, the person who owns the planning efforts doesn't have to be the person who is working on implementation.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So this is the only thing, like that person should have some context, and that person should be able to reach the people to make sure that the board and that everything that we have, all the issues are updated, but they don't need technically to work on it.
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
but other than that, I think this is a pretty good idea.
And one thing I would like to add is we should never I don't mind like being the contact person or whatever. But if we're building this structure because you feel knowledge is locked in someone's head, we should break that pattern.
Oh, yeah.
Like absolutely. And especially if people are interested in learning more, we need to know and ensure that they are approaching the people working on these topics and making sure that everybody has enough context on what we're trying. I mean, some of the work we try to do updates when we do in our regular meetings, but if someone's missing, then it means we're doing something wrong and we need to change it.
Yeah.
Also, to add to what Adolfo said, if you don't have any issue, if you don't have any trace about what we want to work on and what needs to be done, if someone wants to help, they don't even need that we need help, because there's no way to find that something needs to be worked on, and that's problem as well.
Yeah, it's probably not the best time to start planning on the things we want to implement with 128. So we can directly start working on those. Yeah. So are we able to create project boards by ourselves? Yes, right?
I don't know. Maybe
We don't know,
can.
right? Do we know?
I think that we are.
Yeah, because then we can probably also think about
Where is it? I don't see it from here.
removing or just, yeah, if we don't use the release engineering project board and we also have a SIG release project board, then we can think about.
Okay, I think I just created a project, but I will delete it later.
In the org? Is this a
Yeah,
project?
it's in the org.
Yeah, so then what do you think about removing or getting rid of our existing project boards? I mean, who uses them? Yeah. Yeah, you can use them per feature on a per feature basis, which sounds way better. Cool.
So maybe we can, as an action item, see with Sander, and maybe I can also help if I would like to organize some dedicated session. Let's say after KubeCon, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, we try to come up with some, I don't know, let's try to come up with some meeting time and try to have a session and at least see either for OBS or for Salsa, or maybe for both of them, to like put some project boards, put some issues, and see how are we standing with that. Would that work?
As part of this, should we revisit the roadmap and make sure that it aligns with what we want to do?
Yeah.
I think as I was going through the exercise of trying to make the initial PR for the annual report, this would have been much easier. Or that would have been much easier if we had super dedicated boards to track everything, and it was easy to link back. We could share that as part of the report.
Yeah, I mean,
I haven't always been a big fan of process in the past, but GitHub project boards, I love and respect. They really do make life a lot easier.
Yeah, they got better recently as well, right?
In the 127 retro, just before the session, we were kind of celebrating how much traffic was.
Yeah, I mean, the roadmap right now is pretty lightweight, right? So if you do you want to open it? It's just it's mostly just the packaging and the salsa work, which is in progress right now, as well as the signing, which is kind of on hold until we stabilize everything around.
Okay, we should probably come up with naming. Do we want to come with like SIG release / packaging?
Yeah, why not?
I will fix a virtual typo because I don't see from this angle.
Yeah.
But is there a save button or is that it? Yeah. We'll put this on yeah, there it is. And we can create one more project for salsa. And we can eventually link that later to the agenda. Okay. And let's put this here.
Yeah.
Adjusting the package part. Okay, do we have anything else regarding this topic?
I don't think so. We
Okay.
can just briefly discuss the last topic from.
Yeah, this is also from me.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can briefly introduce it. Or yeah, so as you may know, we stopped cutting RC0 releases when cutting patch releases. And the issue with that is that how release markers looked like earlier, it was like you had something, let me write it down quickly as an example. So it was, for example, after, let's say, V126 1, it would look like V126 2, RC0, the number of commits, and then some cache. The thing is that since RC, this is not the case anymore, so we don't have that RC part, but it looks something like V126 1 dash number of commits dash hash. This broke some tooling, and we are having problems with that. So we had to manually change version markers, which is not a good idea, because first of all, we don't want to change anything manually. The second thing is that tests are invalid, basically, so we don't have a real test coverage. I think that for now it is working properly, but we might have the same issue when for cutting 127.0 or 127.1. Sorry, 128.0 and 128.1. So the idea was to ask, how do we want to approach this? I would prefer that we again take a look into this, that we try to fix all the issues rather than returning RC0. Because, yeah, I think that not having RC0 was definitely a huge improvement, especially from image promotions time, which are like half, and release time, like the stage is taking 1 hour instead of 2 hours. But we are still having issues. Okay.
So my proposal was we tag the repository, but we don't build it. But so that would re-enable all of the tests and just return everything back to normal, probably.
So when people want to check out the path, make it.
Oh, yeah. Unless we tag at the same. Okay. But well, that's kind of what.
No.
You have a type of like people have like it.
I mean, those RC0 tags were never useful because they were the same as the release, but we don't know if people have some logic in place that is, for example, going to do something with that tag to try to pull images or something like that. That's what Cici said. So yeah, I think that we should probably try once again to fix the logic. And if that doesn't work, like resort back to cutting RC0, but that would be bad.
But the branch, so the patch releases should be fine now, all of them.
I think the
120.
patch release
Yeah.
should be fine.
All supported. So we only have the issue that when we cut the 128.0 in the future, then we risk that we create an additional RC or something like this.
We risk that we are going to cut it using wrong release marker. So
Yeah.
pointing to some old commit.
Are they only cutting RC0 or are they also cutting RC1? So are they,
Yeah, we are cutting RC1 as well,
so
but
they won't cut RC0.
yeah. I mean, for minor releases, we will have RC0, RC1, but same problem still applies because there's some problem with that logic that compares these version markers.
Yeah, so I think we should revisit this. There's also this open issue on KK.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which has not been resolved yet. Okay, cool. And with that, we are almost out of time. Any final words regarding this meeting's format or anything else? All right. With that, I would like to thank you all for attending and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good. Thanks for sharing.
No worries. So can I just leave the meeting? Do I need to stop sharing or?
No, I
If you end it, we'll,
yeah.
it'll stop.
Hey.